Hi there, Chad here from Chibi AI, and in this video we're going to do a deep dive into actions. And what I hope you'll get from this is that you'll see actions are a very powerful capability inside of Chibi, and they give you the unique ability to create tools that are your own creation and therefore can do what you want them to do. And I'll just showcase something here real quick. I'm just going to go into my workspace here called testing demo, and I've got this document right here. And let's say that let's just look through here, and let's say that this is maybe just a little bit too long and I want to condense it. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to click on condense text. Chibi goes to work, writes a little bit shorter condensed version of it. Not a lot, but a little bit, and it's condensed in a way that I prefer, right? So what is going on here, right? Because, condense text and expand text and these kinds of things, they've been a part of AI apps pretty much for the past couple of years or so at least, right? You can find them in pretty much any of the apps, right? Like you just select some text and you get like a little pop-up or something that says condense or expand. They're everywhere. But the key difference here is that this is something that I've built for myself. And let me just go ahead and show you. So over here we have the Actions Toolkit, and inside of here I have this section that I've called Tools. We call these action groups. They're essentially folders that allow me to organize my actions how I want. You can think of actions as tools too if you want to. So I've got condensed text and expand text and a few other things here, but the one I just ran was condensed text. So let's just take a peek at that. It's a pretty simple action. It only has one task here, one step. And if I open that up, you can see that it says apply the 80-20 principle to condense the original text, targeting the 20% that delivers 80% of the value, preserve the core message style and tone. And then we have some variable thing here and a trailing label. So this is essentially the prompt. Right, this is what we're telling the AI to do. And we've got this variable right here. The variable is selection, and that's why in my document I'm able to select text and do something to it, right? Because we're using the selection variable here. I'm not going to go into depth on variables just yet. Do it a little bit later in this video. But you can see that this is essentially my own creation. If I wanted to condense text in a different way, totally can. Just change that up. If you have a preference or how you would prefer it, or even better yet, maybe you start with something and it doesn't quite do what you want, you just kind of tweak and change that over time. And eventually this becomes the perfect tool that condenses text exactly how you like it to. Or maybe you have different versions of the condensed text tool, right? Like it does the condensing in different ways based on what you're selecting and whatnot. It's totally up to you, and that's the real power of these Chibi actions, right? Because if you step back for a second and just kind of think about it, we have all these categories and stuff, and we've got these tools that we can have in here. And just imagine if you have created your own custom toolkit that does everything that you need to do in just a click, right? You just come up here, you've got a little play button right here next to the actions. In my case, also, we have some favorited, so I got condensed text here. Notice that over here we have condensed text, got a little heart icon. That means it shows up over here in our little shortcut menu so that we can use it without having the action toolkit open. But you can imagine though, when you have that whole toolkit set up, that you're going to have just a really powerful set of tools that are doing exactly what you like to do, how you like to create your content, just ready to go at a drop of the hat, right? You can just click and do the work that you need to get done. And this allows you to kind of really get to the fine-tuned controls that most apps don't really allow for, right? Like you'll see a condensed tool, but you don't have any control. It's just that you have to use whatever it is that it's doing for you. And so that's what I want to try and get across here in this video. And then I want to show what all these different parts are of these actions. And then we'll go through kind of creating one and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do here first is I'm just going to go ahead and open up the condensed text one here again, and just kind of show you the anatomy of what this is. We call this a task. Like right now you only see one task in this list, but you can add multiple different types of tasks. We have all these different, we've got 39 different types of tasks that all do different kind of functionality. And I'll be going into more of these in a little bit. But before we dive in, we've got these categories up here. We've got core, we've got utility, editor, logic, and tools. We call our core tasks, they're the ones that do most of the real heavy lifting in an action. They can interface with the AI. The two main that you'll probably use are stream prompt and run prompt. In fact, back here, see this icon right here? If I go back to this panel, it's this one, right? It's the same icon. This is the stream prompt task. So if we take a peek at that, you can see that it's essentially a prompt that is going to be run by the AI to generate content. In this case, it's a stream prompt, so the results of that content are going to stream right into the document wherever your cursor is. And then we have some settings back here where we can control other types of things. Now these settings are different based on the different types of tasks that you have in your action. In this case, we have some AI settings because this is a stream prompt, so you want to have control over how the AI is going to perform its work. In this case, it's using the current role, and that means that whatever the current role on your document is, then it's going to use that. So in this case, I have a content catalyst role that is using GPT-4o mini AI model right now. So of course you have the ability to change this as you see fit, but we have all these different settings and stuff that are different per task, and I'm not going to dive into all of those necessarily here right now. But essentially, this is where you would go if you want to make adjustments to what the task is doing and how it's working. And one other kind of main key point here is that these are sequences of tasks. So let me just close this one here, and let's go into the blog outline. And you can see here we've got 4 tasks. Essentially, they run one after another, right? In this case, you're going to get a pop-up when this one runs, because this type of task pops up a box. Let me just run it. So you get this box that pops up. You can fill in some content, and then it moves on to the next task. And then when this task is done, it moves on to the next one, until it gets to the end. And each step is doing something for you. In this case, the action is designed to create a blog outline. We're doing it in a really interesting way here, and I will explain that in a little bit when we start diving in a little bit deeper. But what is going on here is the results from previous tasks are being passed on to the subsequent tasks. So we can have sort of a cascading context or information that flows from one to the next. So this task can use the results from this task and so on. And we end up being able to, with this capability, along with some other, we have some variables that give you content that you can use from inside of the document itself to make for a really powerful system that creates these tools. In one of the kind of really cool things about this is that you can have a very simple action, like I showed with the condensed text. It's just one step. It's using the selection, which is a special variable that just contains the text of whatever you have selected in your document. So like right now, I got your daily life becomes a culinary adventure all the way through to service, right? When I run this action, this text would actually go here so that this prompt can do its job with just this against that text, so to speak. So these are called variables, and there's a pile of different variables that are available, and you have access to them from here. And each one, I'm not going to dive into what each one is specifically in this video, but in our help center, we do have these things documented. So if you want to learn more about them, but a few key main ones If you want to have the text of whatever is in the title of your document right now, which in this case is the Elite Ramen Experience, you would use the title variable. Selection, you just learned about that. Clipboard, if you have something copied into your clipboard and you want to use that inside of your action, you would use the clipboard variable. We have whole document, so if you want to use all the text that's in your document at once, then you can go ahead and use the whole document. We have above cursor, which is essentially if, let's say that my cursor was here in a document, the stuff that's above it up to a certain degree, and that's a little bit hard to judge, but the stuff above the cursor essentially becomes what is filled in with above cursor. Memory stack is a special variable that takes in all the memory, and we haven't talked about memory in this video, but memory is a place where you can kind of have bespoke information that you want Chibi to be aware of when it's writing. And in this case, I've got topic, ramen in Tokyo for the ultra wealthy. You know, that's just something that maybe I wanted to write about, for instance. You might consider putting something in here, like if this was for a blog, maybe you would have another field that would be maybe your audience, you know, things like that. You'd put maybe another one in there and have like keywords and just whatever you need to put in here so that as Chibi's writing and whatnot, he's aware of this type of information. And inside of the action, if you use the memory stack variable, then it will use the contents of the memory. So if you wanted to use that in your actions, that's how you can do it with this memory stack variable. Now, I know that this kind of stuff can get a little overwhelming if you try and dive in too deep too fast, but the real point of this is that you can really create some powerful things here. And so let's go ahead and dive a little bit more into this blog outline action here so that we can see what is going on here. So essentially, this is the anatomy of a task that we're going to go through here. And one of the things I want you to be aware of with pretty much all tasks, most all tasks, they have this concept of a source, right? So something is going to be coming into it to do work, right? Now, for these types where we've got a prompt here, we probably want to work with something that's coming from a task above it, right? So in this case, see how we've got input right here and we've got input right here. When this task runs, see this task pops up, right? So we run this again, right? So this task pops up a box. We fill some text into it. Where does that text go, right? Where does it go? It goes into this variable called input. And then next task, we can take advantage of that text. Whatever I typed into that box would be in this input variable and be passed here. So this prompt right here can take advantage of that variable. And so this prompt right here is designed to do a sort of analysis of whatever it is that we had entered in there. Now, this is a very special type of action where I'm building it specifically to do what in the AI space we might call reasoning or just thinking. A lot of times a prompt, and you might have witnessed this yourself if you used any AI tools before, a prompt will sometimes just be like a direct ask to the AI and then you'll get your result and then it's like a one-step thing, right? One of the really nice things about actions is that we can break these things down into steps. And so what I'm doing in this action is I'm building a way so that when you make your request, the AI is going to do some thinking steps first before generating the final outline so that we can create a higher quality end result. And so this main prompt, or this prompt right here, is mainly designed to do an analysis. So when it does its job, though, it's going to put the analysis results are going to go inside of this input analysis variable. And then I can go into the next task and I can take advantage of that here. And so on and so forth. So you get this, so we have draft here and I'm using draft here. I can, at any point, I can also use any of the other variables above it, right? So right now this one's using draft, but maybe I want to use input analysis. And if I click on this, it copies it to the clipboard. I can use it as well. So the results that had been passed on here, I can use here. I can also use input. I can use any number of them that I want. If that's what my prompt needs, if it needs this information from the analysis and the input and the draft and all that stuff, I can use it if I really want to. In this case, I don't need it for this particular prompt, but I just want you to be aware that if your subsequent tasks can use any of the variables from above. Now, there's one core thing that I need you to be aware of as well, and we're going to go into, let's use an editor heading type of task. This task, it's an editor type, which means all it's trying to do is maybe insert text into the editor. In this case, it's going to insert a heading. But what is it going to insert? That's where the source comes into play. Right now, use a custom source is turned off. And so what that means is whatever task is above it, whatever it passes on is what it's going to insert as a heading. Now this task right here, right, the final outline, it's going to write the outline to the document and then pass the outline to the next task. You probably wouldn't want to use an insert heading there because you don't want a whole outline being inserted into the document as a heading, right? But that's the point, is what I'm just trying to show you, is that the content automatically flows into it so that it works. It just works by putting it there after that task. So you can imagine if you have an action that generates a headline, and then you want to have it insert into the document as a heading, then you can use this. There's some unique capabilities though if we turn on custom source. So the custom source means that it's not taking the results from the previous task anymore. We get to tell it what results to use. Now that can be any of these variables. Like if we just wanted to write what we wrote into the document as a heading, we could just use that variable right there. And that means that this insert heading is using the contents that came from this step. And that's pretty cool if we need it to do that. But we also have the ability to use any of these variables that are from the document. If we have our own memory fields like topic and audience you saw me work with before, I can actually do something with that as well. Custom source is just a way for you to customize what information that task is using as its sort of input. So that doesn't, inside of these types of tasks up here where you've got prompts, there's no source like that because your source is essentially however you build your prompt. But other types of tasks like insert heading, and if we add something like, let's see, we can do trigger memory, maybe memory composer. See how this one has a custom source. Trigger memory composer is a task that when it runs, it's going to open up the memory composer, which is this tool right here. And here it's empty, but if you let me go turn on the settings. If you turn on the custom source here and you fill it with something, or if you want whatever comes from the previous task. Now notice, here's something special to think about too. Notice here that insert heading, it doesn't have a variable here. That means that this type of task does not pass on anything. So the text that would automatically flow into the trigger memory composer task right here would be from the final outline, because this would be the next task above it that actually returns a result. So this would get fed in automatically. If that's the text that you want to use in the memory composer, that's perfectly fine. But if you want something different to be used in the memory composer, that's when you would turn on the custom source. And let's say that we wanted the draft to be what we put in there, then we can paste that in there, and that's how that gets used. So that's a little bit of the anatomy of how the context and everything kind of cascades down through an action for it to do its work, and how variables can be used to do these different things. I'm going to go ahead and remove these two here that are not truly a part of this action, and we'll just go ahead and save this. So of these types of tasks, let's do a quick look at these. Core, these are the ones that are going to be doing all the AI running. These also have some looping and stuff in here. These are a bit more advanced. We won't talk about them too much in this course or in this video. There will be a more advanced video in the future where we go through that more. Utility, these are things that are kind of doing little functionalities inside of Chibi, the app. Right, so we want to pop up something where we want to ask for a certain input, or maybe you want to have a blog writing action that's going to ask you for a topic. You could use this like we had used in our action here. This is an ask for input. And you saw that when we run this action, it comes up with a box. That's what the ask for input task does. And so we have these other abilities here that are like if we want to fill in a memory field, or if we want to trigger the role composer, if we want to save the text as a snippet or anything like that. We have all these different little sort of utilities that we can use. The editor tasks, these are the types that kind of interface with the document. You can see that we can have it insert a heading, we can have it insert text, and update the title of the document. We can highlight text. We have these different things that we can do within the editor itself. Logic, these are the types of, like, if something is true, run a set of subtasks type. Just really quick, I'll show you the if readability one. So let's say that the outline is coming into here. We open this up. You notice it says add a subtask. So if I hit the plus here, I'm just going to put a stream prompt in here just so you can see this. But if we come down and we were in this if readability, we go into the settings here and we can select the type here. We can say if the Fleisch-Kincaid readability score is greater than 65, for instance, if we just put that in there, then it will run the task. So basically, if yes, if it's true, run the tasks inside of here. So in this case, let's do a quick check again. If the readability score is greater than 65, this task will run. If not, it'll just skip right by and keep going to the next task. In this case, that's the last one in the action, so nothing further happens. But this would run. So you can also have multiple tasks inside of here, for instance. So if readability score check is true, these tasks will run. All three of these will run, and then it'll move on. If there were another task after that, then this one would run. So the nested subtasks here each run. When they're done, moves on to the next one. And let me do some cleanup here. And we'll go back to here. So that's how our logic tasks work. You can use them for a variety of things if you want to check if something's empty or if it contains certain text and that kind of stuff. Tools are a little bit more specialized. If you want to extract some certain types of information from a text, you can use this. And if you want to chunk content, like let's say you've got a ton of content coming in and you want to break it up into chunks, that's what this one would be able to do. We're not going to go too much into too many of these. Primarily, we'll be focusing on the core types of tasks here in this video. And yeah, let's go ahead and move on. Let's talk a little bit more about variables here again, because I really want to make sure that you're clear on what variables are and why they're important to an action. So on a high level overview, a variable is essentially a placeholder for some type of text, some type of content. Now, these right here, these are variables. These are variables that are coming from a task, so we call these task variables. And, you know, like I said previously, you can use these variables from the bottom up, right? So like if you're in the final outline, you can use draft, input analysis, and input. If you're in analyze input, you can't use the variables for tasks that are after it because they haven't been run yet, so they don't have anything in them, right? So remember that actions run as a sequence from top to bottom. So the variables that are below the current task that you're working in, those are not available to it, but all the variables that are above that task are available to it. So those are task variables that are kind of handling the content that's rolling down the sequence. But we also have all the document tasks that are available, and that's what you can find here. So all these things here, like you got last paragraph, first sentence, last sentence, all these different things. You get access to your notes and a bunch of other stuff. This is what I want you to keep in mind with those types of variables, is they let your actions interface with your document to a certain degree. So things like last sentence, that is like based off of where your cursor is. So if my cursor is here, the last sentence is this. So if my action needs to work off of the last sentence, then I can use that variable in my action, and then wherever my cursor is, that last sentence will be filled there. So for instance, I'll just put it here. Let's go to last sentence. Now, last sentence, you see double curly braces. Double curly braces indicates a variable. Make sure you always keep in mind that 2 curly braces wrapping text like this means variable. When you run the action and it gets to this point, this will not go to the AI. The last sentence, in this case this, let me just do a copy here real quick. When this is being sent to the AI to work, this is going to get replaced with this. So you can just imagine if that's the kind of text that you need your action to work off of, then that variable is what you put there in order for it to do that work. And can I undo? Nope. Let's go and put last sentence back. So that's why I say that you think of variables as a placeholder. Now this is how you get your actions to interface with your document and how you keep context working for you. Imagine though for a second, if we just kind of step back a little bit and we're using our actions to create content. You know, when we're sending the information over to the AI, we need to make sure that we're sending the information we know that it needs in order to do that work. And that's where those variables come in. Like if we have an action, like say my mouse cursor or my cursor is right here. If I have an action that's designed to create the next paragraph, for instance, that's just a simple write the next paragraph type of action, then how does the AI know what to use as context to write from? How does it know what the next paragraph is? And one thing that we can do here, let's just go ahead and we'll create a new next paragraph action. And we're going to use stream prompt, and we're going to come into here. So this is what it looks like from blank. So this is kind of like creating your first action here. And so we'll just start off with something very simple. Write the next paragraph. And we'll just say next paragraph here. Now this trailing label, this is just something to help steer the AI towards, writing, because the AI is going to write from here on. So it's like, by adding this label here, you're kind of forcing it to write the next paragraph. Now see how it just says stream prompt and from task right here? That before the variables and stuff didn't look like this, right? If I go into settings and if I go all the way down to the bottom here, we can give this a task name. So write next paragraph. And then the variable, we can just use next paragraph. Okay. So by doing that, now I have write next paragraph, and then the variable is next paragraph. Highly recommend that you do this naming, because if you're using these variables and stuff in later tasks that you add into your action, it makes it so much easier to know where things are coming from and whatnot. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it right here like this. Notice I'm not using any variables or anything yet. So I'm going to come right here, and I'm going to run this action. And you're going to see that it's going to write, but it's going to be writing about something that doesn't make any sense in the, let's just go and stop here. So, the pressure to make the right choice weighs heavy. Yeah, so we got like stuff up here. Like we're talking about getting off the jet, luxury, ramen, this kind of stuff. And then down here it says, imagine a creative partner that never sleeps. Right? It's like it's talking about YouTube and AI and all this other stuff. It has nothing to do with the ramen. That is because, let me just go ahead and undo that. That's because this action isn't using any context, right? It has no idea. The only thing it knows to do is to write the next paragraph. So how do we fix that? Well, let's tell it what the prior paragraph is. Could be one thing, if I can type. So we'll have prior paragraph. And then how do we get this? This is going to be our prior paragraph, right? How do we, actually, let's take this away. Struggles real. Okay, we'll leave it here. Because this one has keywords in it like ramen, authentic, and luxury. Okay. So our prior paragraph, how do we get this one to show up in our action? Well, if we go here, we have the last paragraph variable. And that gives it the ability to use that last paragraph so that it knows what to work with. So we'll go here and we'll run our action again. This time it should at least know virtual concierge in the culinary world. It's still talking about AI to a certain degree. Analyzing reviews, AI can sift through, and this isn't just about convenience. Okay. Now, what is possibly going on here? Like, why is it talking about AI? Why is it mixing it with ramen and that kind of stuff? Well, if we go into our AI settings, and this is where we're going to move into the next section of this video, we're going to talk about the AI settings inside of your actions. Notice that it's current role, which means that the AI is using whatever the current role is on my document, which is Content Catalyst. So let's take a quick peek at that. If I hold down the Shift key, when I click this, it'll go right to the editor for it. And since it didn't have a model, it was using GPT-4o Mini, so we'll just go ahead and set one. And here we've got instructions. You're a skilled copywriter with a talent for crafting authentic, engaging content, leverage AI tools, and all that kind of stuff, right? So obviously, this is not the role that we probably would want to be using to write our, luxury ramen content, right? Because this is a role that's not really around that. So since our action is using the current role, right now you see this check mark up here. It means it's the active role. I'm gonna go ahead and close this editor, and we're inside of my roles right now. And Content Catalyst is the one that has the green check. That means it's the one that's active on the document. And if I go over here, we can see that if we hover here, we see Content Catalyst is the one. If you want to have a quick peek at which one is the active role in the document. So I'm just going to come down here and I'm going to activate the blank role. And I'm going to go into it, make sure that it's all empty. So we don't want to be using, well, we go ahead and let's use Mistral Medium. We don't want O1 Mini. We'll use Mixtral as the backup. And we'll save. Okay, so now our role is the blank role, which has no instructions. That's why I call it my blank role. Normally, this might be your blogger role or something that's designed to write in your preferred style and tone and kind of have knowledge, or just a persona set up how you want it to write, basically. And then we go back into our action here, and let's undo this, and let's write again, and we'll get a different result. Introducing the Tokyo Gourmet Ramen Experience. Yeah, see, now it's not writing anything about AI in any way. It's purely focused on the results that we're expecting and hoping for. So if we go back into our settings here, current role is what it was, right? And that's a good setting to have if that's the type of action that you want, that kind of adjusts itself based on whatever the current role is that you're using. But if we open this up and we go into select an AI role, let's say that we have a role that we want it to always use every time. So for instance, maybe we always want it to be using the blank role. We can come into here, we can select the blank role, and that means that whenever this runs, it's always going to use that blank role. So regardless of whatever the current role is on the document, it will use that one. This can be very handy if you have it where you've set up all the settings inside of that role just perfect. It's using the model you prefer. It's got all the persona and everything set up just right. Has your AI settings that you'll see in just a little bit all set up just right. And you just want to reuse those. Then setting it to a specific role is very, very handy. Then we have the custom AI settings. This is where you can define just the settings that are used exactly in this role only, or sorry, in this action only. So we get to set the model that we're using. We'll just use Mistral Medium here. You can do all the instructions. By default, the instructions are going to be just this Chibi instructions here, but you can clear this out and you can change this to whatever you want it to be. So let's say that if you're right next paragraph, you might have something in here, write only one paragraph, do not write more. Maybe if you want them to be concise, moody, and fun at the same time, something, whatever. However you like to write, you could design all that stuff into these instructions. And then because it's custom, that means that this task is always going to use these settings no matter the role that you have available in the document, or and it's not using anything from a specific role that you might set. And this is handy when you know that this action or this step in the action is only supposed to work in a certain way every time, and you don't necessarily need to create a whole separate role just for it. So now let's take a peek at the AI controls. Now these are things that if you've used any AI stuff in the past, you might recognize things like temperature and max length. These are here to just give you more control over what the AI or how the AI model is going to react to your prompt and your persona into your role. And I won't go really deep into these, but if you hover over here, you can see a bit about what these different settings are. Temperature generally kind of means like the higher you set it, the more creative. It's not technically creative, but it's kind of, it has a more freedom to use a variety of different words, which kind of could feel like creativity sometimes, but also it might mean that it strays and doesn't follow your prompt as precisely. So if you have an issue where it's not quite doing what you want, lower the temperature. If it's always the same, but by lowering the temperature, that also means that the AI starts writing more consistently and always the same. If that's not what you're after, you can raise the temperature. So that's mainly a good control to kind of tweak with your settings. Maximum length is maximum length. Now, something to keep in mind here is maximum length does not tell the AI how much to write. What it's doing is sort of setting a cap. And if your prompt is designed in a certain way that the AI is going to write a lot of text, but your maximum length is set really low, then it's not going to go over that. Even if the prompt asked for like 900 words or 1,000 words, but your maximum length is set low, it's going to stop when it gets to the maximum length. So keep that in mind. Also, you want to be careful not to go too high, because if you have a prompt that's got a lot of text in it, then the output might get cut off or stopped because it's trying to generate too much all at one time. So just some things to keep in mind, but also read through all the different settings so that you can set things exactly how you want. The reason that we have this there is, for the most part, we have some sensible defaults. You can probably ignore this if you need to, but by having them there, you have the ability to fine tune how this step in your action is going to perform for you to get the absolute best results. So we have this next paragraph action now that is able to basically see our last paragraph and then write the next one. It's a pretty cool little tool, potentially. Imagine if you spend some time tweaking this and fixing it up and making it just a little bit more precise on how you like it, then that could be really cool. Okay, so let me just go ahead and delete this now. I'm not going to keep this. And I'm going to change this to outline. And we're going to build just something a little bit more advanced. So it's an outline, it's a blog outline, but what we're going to do is I'm going to open this up first, and I'm going to ask it, I'm going to do an ask. So I'm going to do a filter up here, do an ask. So we have an ask for input. Notice how the default is just the name of the type of task it is. And then we have from task 1, because this is the first task. I'm going to open this up with settings already open on this one. I'm just going to say ask for topic, and we'll just label this as topic. The placeholder text here lets us tell, like, kind of like a reminder for ourselves, enter the topic to create an outline for. And And we could give it a default value if we want. So when the box pops up, it comes pre-filled with something. And sometimes what I like to do is just set the default as the title. So I'll just select this and we'll make it the title. I'll hit save. See, like up here we have the Elite Ramen Experience. When we run this, notice that it's already there. That's because of that default value. Okay, now we need to do something with it. We're just going to create something very simple at this point. We're not going to go through all kinds of reasoning and other logical steps that I did in the more advanced version of this. But what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing. We're going to open this up. We're going to go into settings, go down here to the bottom. Let's name it create outline. And then we'll just label the variable as outline. And instead of using the current role, let's set it to custom settings. And then let's pick, for this one, we'll use Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Let's give us some instructions. You are an SEO expert who will craft effective outlines for blog posts that will rank. This is not exactly a thorough persona. You would probably spend a little bit more time to fill this in, and possibly when you're doing your tweaking and experimenting steps, see if you're getting the results that you want out of it, changing this up over time. Let's go and let's lower the temperature a little bit. Max like this is fine. That's 2000 something is plenty. Let's change this to 1 and we'll just roll that up. And now we need to tell it how. Okay, so we're just going to do something very simple. You would do something more than this, but I just want to show you right. Let's not use right. Let's do create an outline for this topic. How do we get the topic to show up here? Well, we enter it in the first task, so we want to use that, whatever it is that we type into that box. So let's click here and we'll put it here. So it's going to create the outline, and then let's just go ahead and leave a nice little trailing label so that it starts the outline nice and clearly. And we'll just say outline. And we'll save. Let's go ahead and just remove all this and let's run our action. It's all pre-filled. I have no idea what it's going to do with the Elite Ramen Experience, but let's see what kind of, there we go. What makes ramen elite? Key components of elite ramen, the broth, the noodles. All right. Not too bad at all. Pretty cool. All right, let's go into here. Let's go into our settings and let's say use Markdown to format the outline. Okay, and we'll save. Let's go ahead and just remove this outline and we'll run this again. And because we told it to use Markdown, we should get some Markdown formatting here. Yep, and we do. After it gets done writing, it should flip to a formatted, there we go. And here is our outline for Elite Ramen Experience. Now, obviously, this is not much for the AI to work with. So we have like this create outline for all that. But in memory, what we could do is not memory composer. In memory, what we could do is we could take advantage of this stuff, right? So let's go ahead and add that into our actions. So let's go down here and let's make a section that gives the AI an understanding this is something separate. We'll do an additional context. Now you don't have to do it this way. I'm just showing one way of sectioning off content inside the prompt. And let's use the memory stack. Okay. So by sectioning it off, and you don't have to do it this way, you can also do it with like its own labels or just triple. You might sometimes see where you see like something like this instead of a prompt, something that gives the idea that lets the AI know that this is kind of sectioned off from the rest, right? And so I like to use XML tags like this because it kind of also gives it an understanding of what it is. In this case, it's additional context to use. And anyways, we'll save that. We'll take this out. Now let's take a peek at our memory first. So ramen in Tokyo for the ultra wealthy who can fly to Tokyo on a private jet, have concierge service, and the cost is no matter. Audience, we'll say billionaires and millionaires who love to travel. Okay, something like that. Probably put a little more detail into it, of course, right? But with using this memory stack, now we've got that context added into what our prompt is going to use. So we'll go into here, let's run this, Elite Ramen Experience, go. And we should get a totally different type. Yep, Ultimate Luxury Noodle Adventure, Customized In-Flight Ramen Tasting, Touchdown at Tokyo's exclusive private airport. Yep, how cool is that? So now this outline is being created because it knows about the context and the additional information that we put inside of memory. And this was just to demonstrate that with actions, you have this ability to kind of stack up the different components that are necessary to create like a really interactive result. So what you can do is you can imagine, though, with an action like this now, it's using the topic and the memory stack, that anytime I need an outline that looks like that, let's just pretend that that's an outline that you really love, and maybe you would go into here and just add more to your prompt and really kind of experiment and come up with the exact perfect prompt that creates exactly the outlines that you love. That now you essentially have a tool that does it. So we have this is a different one. Oops. This is a different one. Here we've got this outline tool that we just created, right? 2 steps, nice and simple, not too terrible. It's using a little bit of content from a pop-up box and content from our memory. But what's really cool about this is it's always there now. I have a tool that is designed by me that now can just generate the outlines that I need at a click, right? I basically click and I click go. I can click away from this to stop it. But just imagine when you have all the tools set up for yourself. Like this is the outline one. Maybe you create another one that actually creates an intro and a conclusion, and one that does writes different sections of it. Maybe you can select a section from your outline, and then it will write the contents of that section and everything, right? So it's a very powerful capability to be able to do this stuff with actions. And so let's just roll into the next section of this video right from there. And I want to talk about best practices and tips. Now, you could, in theory, so we have our tools here, right? We have the outline. This one it's called outline. It generates an outline, right? It's very focused. It does one thing. I mean, it's doing it in 2 steps, or you could do it in 3 or 4 or 5 steps. Doesn't really matter. But the ultimate result of this is that it's designed to create an outline. You could, though, have it do an outline and then have it do like, you could have it write a tweet for each section of the outline. You could have it do a blog post. You could just keep stacking more and more and more and more inside of this one action and have it all just happen when you click, and it would just run straight through all of them. You can just stack up all your prompts. You can make it into a mega action that does all kinds of things for you. Now, I generally don't recommend it. Of course, you can make it work, and if it works for you, go for it. But the main idea for best practices is that when you start doing that, it might become a little bit more complicated to work with. So having actions designed to do their own focused, purposeful thing is better. Which kind of helps you balance kind of complexity and usability, right? And to kind of wrap up this best practices section here, I think experimenting, testing, and iterating is very important. In this case, this is what our prompt looks like. You can tweak and change this prompt to create better results. You've probably seen prompt generation tools out there that create, like 3 or 4 paragraph length prompts. The nice thing about doing things in Chibi Actions is that you can break things down into smaller prompts, which makes the models perform better. They usually write faster, and since you're doing smaller focused chunks, that the results are higher quality as well. So I think by doing that, testing and iterating, it gives you the ability to have an action that ultimately ends up having a higher quality, rather than just kind of being, like letting this, like, okay, it worked the first time and it's working okay, but you can always, test and get different results. Or even if you go into the settings, like this one's working with Claude 3.5 Sonnet, but maybe I want to see what Gemini Flash does or what Llama 3.170B does. All the models write with their own unique vibe, right? And sometimes some of them can even write things Like if you're writing a fiction story about a crime scene or something, you know, sometimes models like OpenAI or Claude or something like that could they have limitations built in, right? Moderation, where it says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I won't write about that." You know, if you're a fiction storyteller trying to write a crime scene, you don't want your AI doing that. So you might swap to a model like Llama that gives you more freedom to write. And so I think my main point is that take your time, iterate through, you know, try it, test it, see how it works for you, swap to different models, because there's always going to be new models coming out with bigger and better capabilities and all that kind of stuff, right? So this gives you the ability to do that really nice and smoothly. You just swap to a different model, or you come in here and you change your prompt, or you come over here and you change the instructions that you're giving the model and that kind of stuff. And you can really kind of hone in on exactly what it is that you want your action to do for you. And that iteration process is really, really nice. So I hope that you found this deeper dive into actions interesting. We will be having a more advanced video where we actually talk about how to use, inside of this core section, we have this line by line and loop. And these really start to get things interesting, but they're a little bit too complex to kind of go into here in this video. But just as a quick glance, line by line, what it's able to do is take the results from a previous task and do something line by line. So in essence, I could have a stream prompt in here. This thing is creating an outline. This outline could go into here, and then line by line through the outline, it can run its own prompt line by line. So you can imagine that that's quite a powerful thing that can create some really long posts. You know how a lot of times you might see an AI prompt that it only seems to stop at like 600, 800, 900 words. And just, even if you say like, write 2,000 words, write 1,500 words. And no matter how you word it, you use the word detailed and in-depth and all that kind of stuff. And it still stops at like 700, 800 words. It just never seems to write more. Your max settings or your max tokens are set really high, and it still stops short. Well, using something like line by line, or even just multiple tasks in a row, you get to create really long pieces of content. We have some users who, yes, have actions that create 20,000 word books. You know, they're able to draft out their books in essentially one click. Now, I'm not going to go into that too much in our official Chibi videos and stuff probably, but if our users in the community who are willing to share and see how, you know, things are done with them, more power to them. Definitely, if you're looking for more assistance, jump into the Chibi community. You can find it up here. If we go to our dashboard, up here, we have a Discord. Just go into the Discord, ask for help. Our help center has a ton of helpful stuff. Or if you look here in this widget, we have all kinds of different guides and sections here. So if you go into Edge Tools, we have an actions section where we cover what each of the different types are. So if we go in here, we got run prompt, and it's going to talk about what run prompt is and all the different settings that are available to you inside of the run prompt task, and so on and so forth. We just got a ton of different documentation in here to help you get the most out of Chibi. And yeah, I hope that this was interesting to you, because actions are a unique thing to Chibi. Only Chibi has actions that do this kind of thing. They give you a bit of automation capability, but also at your fingertips, just tools that you can use in a click. Now, I will leave this with one more example that someone in our community has. And she has a job where she is a moderator for a forum, and she has, once a week, they have a Zoom meeting that's about a 2-hour Zoom meeting. And she takes the transcripts from the Zoom meeting, and then she's able to use those to use Chibi to summarize those transcripts, turn them into a few forum posts, generate blog posts. I'm talking about multiple blog posts, social media posts like X posts, where she's doing, I think, probably 20 or 25 of those all at once. But essentially, what used to take her, she calls it like her Zoom Wednesdays, and she's really she used to kind of dread it a little bit because it would take her hours to get this stuff done. You know, hours, and I mean like days, right? She would start on Wednesday and have it done like Friday or something. But with Chibi, she's able to turn that work into about 20 minutes. She takes the Zoom transcripts, plugs it into her actions, she clicks the button, and her work gets done. And of course, we always preach the human plus AI thing for Chibi. So we prefer, or we kind of recommend that if you're using your actions to do really cool stuff, awesome. Automation is great as a supplement for us to get things done faster, but always review, spend a little bit of time adding your human touch to the results, and you'll be far happier with what you can produce inside of Chibi and any AI tool for that matter. So anyways, I hope you found this interesting. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and drop them into the comments section below, or hit up our community. I'd be glad to help you out. Until next time, take care.